State. At this point, we're being joined by Honorable Barrister Mary Ogwiji, who is a human rights lawyer and politician as well. Hello and a very good morning to you. Honorable, you're welcome to the program.
It's a pleasure being here.
Hello, Honorable, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. I can hear you. Can you
Well,
hear me?
thank you so much for joining us. I can hear you loud and clear.
All right.
Firstly,
Thank you.
I believe while joining in, one of the major things that must have been on your mind is the recent arrest of Delo Faratimi in Lagos State. Can we get your thoughts on that incident? And what do you make of the case that is already going on, even though I know it has been adjourned to 20th December? But do you care to share your thoughts with us on that?
Sorry, can you go over it again? I can't hear you.
Well, I was talking about the arrest of human rights lawyer in Lagos recently, talking about Dele Faratimi in his alleged defamation case
Okay.
with the Are Afeba Balola that is currently going on in Ekiti State. How would you react to this particular incident that has sparked off a lot of controversies nationwide?
Okay. Generally, one would feel that it would be it would be actually treated as a civil case. But notwithstanding, they are not just suing for defamation. He was also sued for cyber bullying, and that's the reason why he was arrested, because every criminal case starts with arrest. But notwithstanding, I actually felt that it would be treated as a civil case, and it's been raising a lot of concerns amongst various human rights practitioners, because we feel that for that kind of case, there are more serious cases that should be given that kind of, will I say, should be given
Attention?
that kind of harsh penalty of him being kept in the police custody, I mean, in the prisons for this long. One would think that being a case of defamation, it should be a civil suit and not something that would actually lead to an actual criminal trial, as it is right now. I know a lot of persons don't know about the cyberbullying parts of the case. A lot of people just see it as a mere civil suit of defamation. But the reason why the courts have the right to keep him behind bars is because they actually brought a suit of cyberbullying against him. And that was what they used to keep him behind bars, not really defamation per se.
Now, many people are saying that the reason why, um, Dele Faratimi had written that book that mirrored something that he said about Are Afeba Balola is actually playing out, talking about gross abuse of power and injustice in the society. And here in the news, we saw that Afeba Balola had also petitioned LPDC wanting Dele Faratimi barred from law practice. Is this notion that is already out there actually true in your opinion as a legal practitioner and also a human rights lawyer?
As a legal practitioner, I would not really want to discuss that because the case is actually in courts. But as a human rights practitioner, I actually feel that when it comes to, as a human rights practitioner, what we think about is the rights of persons being dignified. Imagine you being picked up from a state that you are used to and being taken to another state just to be tried. And when they picked him up at first, there were rumors about as to where he was actually being taken to, because everybody was looking for him. We heard that he's been kidnapped. Some other person said he's been picked up. Nobody was really sure what happened till the human rights community and a lot of Nigerians started to sing and speak out, like, where is he? Before we finally heard that he was actually being tried by for defamation. So if you ask me, I feel that being the kind of person that Afe Babalola is, being a senior citizen of the country and also being a lawyer with that kind of high reputation,
Yeah.
I expected that he should have used other will I say use other means, like a little bit softer means on to trash the issue. Nobody is saying that he should not fight against defamation or whatever. If he actually wants to fight, nobody says he should not fight against defamation, because he has built a name for over the years. Like he's one of the renowned lawyers that we know. A lot of he's a mentor to a lot of young lawyers. Nobody's saying that he should not sue for defamation, but we expected that he should have done things differently because he actually took
in
him
a
to Ekiti
softer
State, and
manner, you
everybody
mean?
knows that his university is in Ekiti State. He's well grounded in that place, and many people are actually rumoring that he actually took him to Ekiti State because of the hold that he has there, and he's actually trying to use the law, manipulate the law to his advantage. That's what people have been saying allegedly. But notwithstanding, they are still the law still supports his actions in a way, especially as he brought, especially as he used especially as he brought the cyber stalking crime against him. And cyber stalking is a crime. And cyber
bullying
stalking
petition.
is a crime under the Cyber Crimes Act 2015, Section 24. So he actually has legal grounds to do that.
Now, away from the bullying, let's still talk about the defamation. Dele Faratimi was arrested in Lagos State, where defamation isn't really a criminal case or a criminal offense, and then moved to Ekiti State, where he is being tried. And in your capacity now as a lawyer, is defamation a criminal offense in Ekiti State? Could that have been the reason why Dele Faratimi was moved, apart from the fact that Areafe Babalola has some sort of strongholding in Ekiti State where he is residing?
Okay. Cyberbullying, sorry, defamation generally is a civil crime, it's a civil wrong. So anybody that is being sued for defamation ordinarily should ordinarily he should just be what's his name?
Dele
Hello, can you
Faratimi?
get me?
Yeah, yes, I'm with you. I'm with you. Hello, Honorable, I'm with you. I can still hear you loud and clear. Well, it appears that there might have been some sort of disconnect with your network connection there.
Hello,
Yes, I
can you
can
hear
hear
me?
you. Carry on with your point.
Okay, sorry, please can you just go over it again because I was trying to get my network stable.
Okay, I was just asking concerning the defamation case. Now, he was arrested. Dele Faratimi was arrested in Lagos State, where defamation isn't a criminal offense, rather a civil
Yeah.
case, and then moved to
Yes.
Ekiti State. Apart from the fact that Areafe Babalola has some sort of strongholding in Ekiti State, could it be that maybe in Ekiti State, defamation is being treated as a criminal offense? Is that the reason why he was transported there to be tried there in Ekiti State and not in Lagos State?
Okay, no, defamation is not a crime in Ekiti State.
Okay.
It's not a crime in Ekiti State. Like I told you, he was brought on. The reason why he was arrested, they had to bring cyber stalking. Although, if you ask me based on my personal, if you ask me for my personal review, I would say what Dele Faratimi did as cyber stalking because he never really, I never saw any action that he did to actually qualify as cyber stalking. But notwithstanding, that was what was used to arrest him because every crime starts with an arrest, and cyber stalking is a crime under Section 24 of the Cyber Crimes Act 2015. And so that was why they decided to use cyber stalking to arrest him rather than defamation. Because a civil suit does not start with an arrest. It's only when the police, when you've been invited by the court severally and you refuse to come, that is when the court can now order for an arrest in a civil suit. But other than that, a civil suit does not necessarily start with an arrest. In fact, there's no need for an arrest in a civil suit.
All right, let's move away from that topic and also take a look at different human rights violation issues within the country, especially with many human rights organizations like Amnesty International that recently cited that about 300 persons or thereabout have died in military detention within the country in just 2024. Now, this is off the back of an investigation by the organization into the gross acts of human rights violations within the country. You are a human rights lawyer. How much of a bad image or reputation would you say this is, rubbing off on Nigeria's image as a sovereign nation?
Generally, I feel that first of all, we need a lot of work in our executive and with our armed forces and with our law enforcement agencies generally. I feel we need to really educate them because sometimes the way they act, it looks as if they usually don't have enough information on what human rights are. Because most times you always hear people telling citizens that do your part, do your part, do your part. But notwithstanding, the law enforcement agencies also need to also, they are also responsible to us. They need to tell us, they need to be abreast with these human rights laws, because where there is no knowledge there will be abuse. Because some kind of things that I hear sometimes actually, will I say, it aches my mind. Imagine the number of persons that have died from the reports, allegedly. I don't know if it's actually been investigated and found to be true, but allegedly, look at the number of persons that have died. And if you ask me, the most fundamental right anywhere in the world is right to life. And so if citizens who you are supposed to protect, those kind of citizens that you are supposed to protect, whose lives are under your care, if you take them, so what actually are you doing? So it's actually a bad image for Nigeria to have that kind of reports coming from here, especially from the military who is supposed to protect her citizens.
Apart from the military, the Nigeria police has also been fingered many times when it comes to human rights violations and abuse in all sense. And just recently, we saw something in the news this morning that 36 states in the country are calling or are already throwing their weights behind the state policing process that is about to take place across different parts of the country. Now, with the state policing, do you think that somehow, in some way, the Nigeria police would have better reforms that would help stem down the issues of human rights abuses across the country and also reaffirm that commitment to first protecting lives and property of persons, of individuals within the country, and not violating the rights of people?
Okay, personally, I don't know how this policing would actually influence human rights per se. But notwithstanding, I feel like it's a very welcome development generally, because there is nobody that knows the states like the people in the states. You see, most of these criminals, you even, they are people's brothers, they are people's mothers, they are people's uncles, they are people's fathers. So whenever you hear that there is a crime somewhere, if you go to that locality, people can actually pinpoint to tell you that, okay, this is where it happened. They know these persons. But because these states don't have the power, they don't have the rights to call the shots. They are not in charge of the police. They can't actually give orders to get these persons immediately. So I believe that the state policing is going to actually help, because somehow, especially if the state police, especially if the police, the staff are being gotten from within that locality, I believe it's going to help to curb crime generally.
Now, earlier you mentioned that the report I had cited by Amnesty International is one you can't verify, but interestingly, I have a statement here where it says that Amnesty International has alleged that over 10,000 people have died in military custody. Now, earlier I said 300, but now we have the exact figure. 10,000 people have died in military custody since the onset of the Boko Haram insurgency in the northeast. Now, mind you, the Boko Haram insurgency started in 2009. That's about 16 years now. Now, it also said that the Nigerian military has frequently treated anyone from areas controlled by Boko Haram as suspected members of the group. Now, when we say areas controlled by Boko Haram, I'm talking about the northeastern part of the country. How do we separate and create a clear-cut line between persons who are victims of insurgency in these areas and the actual perpetrators or the terrorists in the northeast? So you don't have persons dying unjustly or being detained unjustly just because of their affiliation with a certain region.
I think when this particular question has to, we have to throw the focus on the military, because they are trained for whatever work. I believe they are trained for whatever work they are called to do. They are supposed to, when you get somebody, for example, there should be a reason why you should arrest somebody or detain the person. Did you get the person? Was there evidence? Was there sufficient evidence? The person confessed to a crime. Did you meet the person? Did you catch the person in the act of maybe terrorism acts or things like that? You should be able to differentiate between those persons. And generally, The laws in Nigeria does not necessarily govern when it comes to the Boko Haram right now. It's the international human rights laws that actually govern that. And based on the international human rights laws, they are not even allowed to kill even the Boko Haram members themselves. A lot of persons don't know that. That's why whenever you advocate that some people should be declared as terrorists, you are actually giving them international reputation. Because once a set of people are declared as terrorists, they are not governed by the law of when there's a war, when there's a crisis. They are not really governed by the Nigerian law per se anymore. They are now governed by the international human rights laws, and the international human rights laws protect everybody regardless of whether the person is a terrorist or not. As far as you've captured the person is unarmed. As at the moment when he was captured, you are not even supposed to kill that person. So in that way, you would see that if they follow that law based on the way it is, you will see that we would not have a lot of casualties when it comes to killing innocent persons, killing people that are from the northeast just by alleging that maybe they may be part of the Boko Haram set just because they are from a particular locality. And I think maybe that was what the international community was looking at when they made such laws.
Now, what is the place of this international community in ensuring that, in as much as anybody that has been declared a terrorist is now guided under international law and should not in any way be killed by the sovereign nation where the terrorist act is being taken, how do they ensure that these persons who are terrorists are actually arrested or apprehended in a way that does not allow them be killed? Because most of these persons that are killed are either killed during a combative session with members of the military, or arrested and interrogated and then die in the process of interrogation. Do you still think that this is wrong in all sense by the Nigerian military when it comes to dealing with terrorists?
And when it comes to dealing with terrorists, will I say innocent persons that are killed during combat, they are just, will I say, they are collateral damage. And there are rules of war generally. Those rules of war are actually supposed to guide the military, regardless of the fact that Boko Haram members are not part of the treaty. The Nigerian military are still supposed to do their part by obeying that treaty and follow the rules of war, which includes looking at the space and making sure that they do not have like civilians, innocent civilians, living close to where they are supposed to attack. So, but where you now have a case where maybe they have done their due diligence, they've done what they ought to do, following the rules of war, and somehow some innocent civilians are still within range, there's actually nothing they can do. Even the international community would not hold them responsible for that, especially when they have done their due diligence. They will just see those persons as collateral damage, which is quite unfortunate.
Another security agency that is being probed right now by members of the House of Representatives is the Nigeria Customs Service. Now, they're being probed on two things. One, the ever increasing number of smuggled items coming into the country, with the increasing number of smugglers growing every now and then. And secondly, issues of human rights abuse at our borders, or torture by the NCS officers meted out on certain individuals. Yesterday on the program, while I was interviewing a guest here, a statement was made by him, and he said that the officers of the NCS allow these smuggled items to be brought into the country in one way or the other, and then they go to the marketplaces and start harassing and arresting persons who have bought these smuggled items unknowingly or unsuspectingly. How do we address this issue? And who exactly is to be blamed in this sort of situation? The smugglers, the NCS officers, or the unsuspecting buyers of these smuggled items?
If you ask me, I think the custom officers are sharing part of the blame because they are supposed to man our borders, and if they are manning our borders the way that they ought to man it, and they are doing it diligently, I don't think smuggled items will be able to get into the country, and even the persons that are trying to smuggle these items. I believe that there is a list of contraband items that are shortlisted somewhere, maybe in the websites of the custom service. So
Yes.
we should be able to cross-check to know these items that I'm bringing in, are they contraband? And most times they actually do know that those items are contraband before they bring them in. But you cannot blame an innocent citizen that does not know that a particular item is contraband and comes to buy, like, in once it has entered the country. Because there are even some items that, okay, like for example, there was a time that the about the importation of rice. I think it's still valid. So
Yes.
imagine you seeing rice in the market and buying, not knowing that that particular rice was brought in, was a contraband item that was already brought into the market. So how would you blame an unsuspecting buyer? So I think it has to do with the custom services. And one thing I feel that most of our law enforcement agents should take note of is that there is a social contract between the citizens and the state. The citizens have decided to submit themselves to the rulership of the state so that the state will protect them, protect their lives, protect their properties, protect them from inhuman and indignified treatment, not so for them to be subjected to torture. I believe that it's high time we actually educate and keep advocating for maybe more education for our law enforcement agents. Let them know that the reason why the people are submitting to them is because they actually expect that they should be protected and not to be enslaved or to be tortured, because it's as if the power that they have given to the law enforcement agents have made them to be so power drunk, and they feel that maybe the citizens are slaves, or they are subjects to just be manhandled or treated with any form of will I say, with they treat most citizens with the highest form of torture, inhuman treatments,
And brutality.
undignified actions, and so on. Like I'm usually pained when I see the kind of things that happen most times in the police. When you hear the reports from the police, you hear the reports from even like the custom services. Like you said, there was a particular report that I heard. I can't remember exactly when a custom person shot a car, and when he shot at a car, somebody died inside that car, and he was given a ride by somebody that was bringing in a vehicle. So first of all, you need to think of the lives that you are protecting. You need to think that the paramount thing is life. Any other thing can actually be under control. And if you are manning what you ought to man the way you ought to do it diligently, I don't think we will have most of these accidental discharges that actually happen once in a while.
Now
I
let's
don't
talk.
even think it's once in a while anymore, because
It
it's
happens almost
repeatedly.
every now and then.
Yes, it's actually more. It's very frequent now,
If you
and it's
recall,
disheartening.
now if you recall during the hashtag end bad governance protest, some individuals were arrested who were deemed minors, according to the reports that were pouring out when these arrests were made. Now, when these minors were taken to court, some human rights lawyers took up their case as a pro bono case to, advocate and fight for them to be released, citing that they are underage, even though there are still conflicting, takes concerning whether or not they were underage, because some of them were looking underage while others were looking like full grown adults. In situations like that, how do we draw the line between ensuring that persons who are already of age are meted with the appropriate punishments that are meant for persons who are adults? And then how do we also treat tender age people or younger people who have committed crimes like the one that they did during the hashtag end bad governance protest, where the Russian flag was being waved all over the place, government infrastructures were being ruined by these protesters and all. How do we draw a clear cut line between ensuring that we tackle the adults and also tackling the minors and not abusing any of their rights?
Okay, we have juvenile courts and we have laws. The problem we have in Nigeria, it's not like we don't have laws. We have these laws. The issue that we have is that, are we actually following the law the way it ought to be? We don't have issues in making the laws. We have good. In fact, Nigeria has very, very good laws. The only problem is, are we following the law? There are set guidelines that ought to be followed when it comes to issues like this. And when it comes to this kind of crimes, the children are supposed to, the people that are underage are supposed to be tried like in juvenile courts. But notwithstanding, there are cases where the crimes are serious, they have to try the both the child and the adults in the normal court system that we see. It's not like sometimes the juvenile courts, it's not like we have the courts that they just call the juvenile court. Sometimes it could just be like a normal court setting, but it's put in such a way that it's child friendly. So we actually have the laws that govern whatever we need to do concerning, okay, where an adult is to be tried. An adult is to be tried in a normal court. In a normal court, it's supposed to be tried in a normal court. But for children, depending on the crime, if the crime was committed by a group of children, mostly they are mostly tried in a juvenile court. But when there's an adult in between, you see most times they still bring them to a normal court setting.
You have pointed out countless times that Nigerians do not know their rights and do not know how to defend themselves when it comes to, you know, things enshrined within the rights enshrined within the Constitution when they come face to face with brutality or human rights abuse by security agencies or offices within the country. Do you care to take us through some of these rights that Nigerians should know, and maybe one or two sections of the Constitution that they could quote to the security agencies in order to get themselves through any difficult situation that might be trampeding on their rights as humans?
Okay, first of all, I would want to advise every Nigerian to get a copy of the Constitution. In as much as our Constitution is not so bulky, but it's still not too concise. I wish it was even smaller, that something that somebody can put in the pocket or just have everywhere. If you have a copy of the Constitution is not just for lawyers. Knowing the law is not just for a lawyer. You as a citizen yourself, you need to know the law so that you know how to protect yourself. And part of the laws, we have civil and we have, as a part of our rights, we have the civil and political rights, which includes rights to fair hearing, rights to association, rights to expression, rights to life, rights to peaceful assembly. We have our economic and social rights, and in Nigeria, that's a particular right that we are far from. We are like this. We are like a long tread away from achieving these rights. The economics rights include rights to education, healthcare. How many people actually do have good healthcare in Nigeria? We are far from having good healthcare and education. Chapter 2 of our constitution actually talks about fundamental objectives. Fundamental objectives are not enforceable in courts, and that's a very important aspect of life for every citizen. Everybody needs to be educated, but yet you cannot enforce it because they are under the fundamental objectives. If you go through the constitution and you see the fundamental objectives, you will see that we have very juicy, nice laws being put there, but they are not enforceable. Nobody can enforce them. So if there is a way we can advocate or to our government, if they actually can make these laws enforceable, then we can have a better
Well, it appears there is a little bit of glitch there, Honorable Barrister.
structured. We have rights to freedom of religion, conscience, thoughts. We can just check the chapter 4 of the constitution. We have so many rights there written there. And also under the Universal Declaration on Human Rights, which Nigeria adopted in the chapter 4 of the constitution, you have numerous rights there. Our rights are just everywhere. A lot of us, we use our phones to check social media, to check the trending outfits, to check trending news and the rest. We should also have time to check things about the laws, the human rights laws. How do we know the laws? We should check most of these universal declarations. We should check the African Charter on Human Rights. Check these laws and get abreast with your human rights. I believe that with that, the more we advocate for people to know, the more we believe that abuse on human rights will be lessened, both for I don't want to know, not the oppressors, both for the law enforcement agents
And for the
and
citizens
also the
themselves.
citizens.
Now,
Yes.
now, one very pertinent issue that, as comical as it might sound, and very true also, is the statement "bail is free," especially at Nigerian police stations. You hear bail is free, you see it written on the wall clearly, bail is free. But many Nigerians know that bail is not really free in Nigerian stations. How do we address this? And I just want to hear from you. Is bail really free in its sense at our stations?
If I'm to be honest,
Yes.
treating bail is free. It's just like this particular thought that they'll tell you that Christianity is free, but you need to buy the Bible.
Mm.
So it's like bail is free, but somehow you still have to pay something in order to get your clients out.
You need to
So I don't
settle.
know
You
how
need
that
to settle
translates to
them.
bail. So I don't know how that translates to bail actually being free. But notwithstanding, there's this particular group that actually has to do with the discipline in the police force. I was at one of the meetings that they had. I don't know why I can't remember. They even gave us a handbook. I think I've even put it on my social media handles. I put it there. I put the numbers there. They said that whenever we go to the police station to try to bail somebody and we are asked to pay money for bail, we should call them, and that once we call them, we should just get the names of the police officer or something. I can't. I wish I knew we were going to ask this question. I would have kept their numbers somewhere handy, but right now I don't have it handy. But maybe subsequently I will try and get it across. I think it will be helpful. So let's test it and see if actually the discipline
We would
committee
love
of
to
the
have
police force is working.
would love to have the number to actually test it and see. But I'm just wondering who will commit the crime to go to the police station and then we'll give it a trial. Are you willing to
Ah,
volunteer yourself?
there are always people getting into trouble here and there, so we can always test the law.
Interestingly, now not to paint our security agencies in a bad light, they are doing very fantastic jobs when it comes to securing lives and property within the nation, when it comes to ensuring peace and order. There are a few bad eggs, however, that continue to ruin the reputation and image of our security agencies. And these are the ones that we are focusing on today to ensure that human rights abuses, brutality, police brutality that is almost synonymous with the Nigeria police and other security agencies is and the order of the day. Are there reforms that you think could happen? Maybe training or retraining, like in the case of SARS, that was changed, the nomenclature was changed to SWAT, and I think their modus operandi was sort of revised in a way. But are there other modes of operation or reforms that could take place within our military, within our paramilitary agencies to ensure that the confidence that Nigerians have in our security forces are even more strengthened, and that when you see a policeman, instead of your blood pressure going higher, you would actually be comforted that you are in safe hands?
Okay. I think everything still boils down to training, retraining, learning, and unlearning. We can't just go past that. That's the only way. Whatever point or whatever thing I'm going to actually, will I say, whatever I'm going to suggest is not going to be outside the bounds of knowledge. I feel somehow we should just keep advocating. Still, have to keep speaking to them. You see, most times when they bring in, you see all these Boko Haram members. How do you think that they are being brought in? Do you think it's easy for you to sacrifice your life to just want to die, especially the suicide bombers and everything? They speak to these people. So words are actually powerful. Advocacy is powerful. We need to keep we need to relentlessly keep educating our law enforcement agents, and we need to also make sure that we have credible structures that could actually discipline them when they err, because it's not enough for us to keep talking. The way the nature of human beings are, sometimes you need to make sure that they are well structured discipline plans for persons that err, because if you keep just speaking and you don't take any action to deter negative vices, it will keep repeating itself. So I feel that the police force, beyond speaking, they should make sure that these bad eggs are actually punished so that the other ones can learn from it. Because most times you see that there are complaints, and at the end of the day, you don't really hear of anybody being punished. So how are you going to deter others from acting that way? Because if there was enough deterrence, you would see that we'll be having less of this menace. But it keeps growing. It keeps growing. So it's as if the oppressors are something as if the oppressors are actually having some form of benefits from these things.
They're
So
having a
I would
field
just
day.
say we should do to summarize everything. I would just say information, education is the foundation for the utilization and enjoyment of human rights. And so both for our violators and for the citizens, we should all know our rights. We should keep educating, we should keep speaking out. The police and law enforcement agencies must know their rights. We can't overemphasize that. We must know their rights, and we must make sure that we give them proper education, because you see sometimes some policemen, they don't even comprehend some of these things. I don't even think most of them even know these laws, because the way they act, I don't with the way they act, I doubt that they have good knowledge, or they are really abreast with the human rights of the people, or with what they ought to do as the police force.
So
So we
so
just
so
need to
so
keep
it's
educating them.
about enlightenment now. Enlightenment on the part of the citizens about their rights, and also enlightenment on the part of the security forces or agencies about the rights of the citizens and where their power stops when it comes to dealing with citizens.
Absolutely.
We have talked much on the cases of brutality, human rights abuse, gross human rights abuse when it comes to security forces in the country. But let's also turn our attention to citizens themselves, individuals who violate the rights of others. The 16 days of activism against gender based violence just ended recently, I think on the 10th of December, right? And
Yes.
we have had cases of domestic violence, either by a husband to his wife, wife to her husband, or even words or parents to either guardians or parents to their children or their words. In the home, how do we address cases of domestic violence meted out on any individual, either a man, woman, boy, or girl?
I think one of the basic foundation of domestic violence in Nigeria and Africa in general is because of our system. The traditional system is still we this traditional system that feels that maybe women are chattels or things like that. We need to actually resensitize the family system, resensitize parents, because especially for we are not saying you should not chastise your children, or we are not saying you should not discipline them, but there are like mild ways of teaching children the right way to go. And especially for women, I won't even say these days we even have we have instances where women actually beat their husbands, or even actually, will I say, violate them in different ways. So I can't even just say that
You know,
men stop violating your
abuse could
wives.
come in different forms. It could be physical abuse, which is
It could be
mostly from
verbal
men to women.
abuse.
It could be
Yes,
verbal abuse, emotional abuse. There are different forms of abuses, meted out in persons.
that's true.
Now let's take them one after the other, considering the fact that the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence just ended. However, as a human rights lawyer, are there pro bono cases that you have taken up when it comes to such domestic violence issues? And do you care to take us through how that went through and what has been your experience so far?
Okay, yes, we've had quite a number of domestic violence cases. Most of them, okay. The problem that we have is that most times when we go through these cases, it actually leads to divorce, because definitely you don't expect a woman to keep staying with a man that violates her. Like presently, I'm even on a case. That case is actually like it's been like a thorn in my flesh, because somehow the the husband of this particular lady, I can't mention names. The husband of this particular lady is a very influential person, so it looks like everywhere we go to, we are meeting like a headlock. And it's in such a way that it looks as if we are, will I say, in a way, helpless, because there was even a time that, according to her, she even went to the Human Rights Commission. And when she went to the Human Rights Commission, that they actually had some form of mediation session. And she said the next thing, they gave her a blank paper for her to sign, and that she signed that blank paper. I've tried to investigate that. And when I consulted with some persons at the Human Rights Commission, they told me that nothing like that happened. They told me a totally different story from what she actually narrated to me. And so we are still on that particular case, and it's just like it's
And
been a roller
what
coaster.
was the blank
Even
paper
most of
about?
the
What was
popular
she signing
TV,
for?
you said
What was she signing for? What was the blank paper all about?
that was what she was telling. She told me she did not even know what she signed for. But at the end of the day, based on what she signed, she said based on what she signed, the case ended there, and nothing was done for her. So we are still in the same dilemma. So I've been trying to get the file. They said there was nothing like that happened, and so but somehow we've just been moving like from place to place, trying to get some form of help. And the as I'm speaking to you, this particular woman sleeps in her shop. She has been sleeping in her shop for years now.
For years.
She has been sleeping in her shop for years now. She has been deprived of her children. In fact, it's bad. It's so bad that even her children don't want to speak to her, because the father actually left instructions that anybody that starts to communicate with their mother will be excommunicated from the family, and he's the one with the money. So the children are avoiding this particular woman.
What are the many bottlenecks that you face as a human rights lawyer, especially when you take up these pro bono cases? Do you face bottlenecks with the authorities? Do you face bottlenecks with the perpetrators of the acts themselves or the victims? Just share your experience with us,
I
please.
think most times, I think the bottlenecks actually happen mostly with the perpetrators,
Mm.
because they would want to do anything not to go in for such crimes. Because whether we like it or not, whenever you are called in for such crimes, it affects your work, it affects everything around you. And so, because they don't want to actually be pinned, they are, when they are committing the acts, they actually don't remember that there are penalties for these actions. But when it's time for them to pay for the acts, they try to do everything possible, especially when they have the money to finance some things. You will see that they will want to put in money here, there, and to just try to kill the cases. So most times we have the problem mostly comes from the perpetrators. Then there are sometimes the victims. I won't blame the victims, because it takes a lot of mental power to go through some form of abuse and still be sane. So most times they are very emotional, that you will give them a specific instruction, and before you know, they will flout this instruction. And after flouting this instruction, it now you now find it very difficult to come back to base. Let's say something that ordinarily maybe you were going straight, and you believe that okay, in a couple number of days or in a couple number of weeks or just in few months everything will be over. You may just give them an instruction, and they'll flout that instruction, and it will look as if you are going backwards, like 10 times backwards. But you won't blame them, because they are in a very vulnerable state. In fact, will I say, I wish we could have like a free mental will I say a free mental, will I call it a home or like a hospital for most of these victims, because they really go through a lot. If you hear some cases, they are really terrible. But notwithstanding, we keep pushing and trying our best to see how we can help humanity.
Well, it's about pushing and trying out your best to help humanity. And thank you for the wonderful works that you are doing. We have just about 5 minutes or so to wrap up this conversation on the program this morning. I'm still talking about pro bono cases. There are many people languishing in Nigeria's prisons. This I'm aware, I know that you are aware of. Now, this is also off the back of the slow pace of judgment on some cases, or the slow pace of courts dealing with some cases where you find somebody spending more than the proposed jail time that they should have spent if there had been an early ruling on their case, spending it awaiting trial, and then being judged and sentenced, and then spending an extra number of years for the crime that they have committed. How slow is our judicial system or justice system? And how do we address this slow pace of justice delivery when it comes to Nigerian courts?
I think, well, when in addressing slow delivery, we really need to speak to the conscience of our justices, because most times when it comes to election cases, or when you see that maybe two big elephants are fighting, before you know, you just see that the cases just keep the speed at which you see these decisions being
Being
made is
taken.
really surprising. Then you see many people suffering human rights abuses. They've not even been heard in years, 2 years, 3 years. Like there was a particular boy that was locked up by his aunt, and it was just he stole food, and he has spent like 2 years plus in prison.
Awaiting trial.
And so you now be asking yourself for food. You now be asking yourself with this kind of cases, he has not even gone for trial. Like he's not been trialed, he's just been there. But thank God we're able to bring him out. And that's just will I say that's just he's just 1%, less than 1% of the kind of cases that we have in the prisons. If we actually can get more hands, get more individuals, sometimes you can just go to prison. You could see that some people, they are just there for fines of even as low as 5,000 naira, 10,000, 20,000, just very little fines. You will be surprised how much your 100,000 naira that you are using wastefully could actually help decongest the prisons. So I'm advocating to individuals that actually have, you don't even need to come to me to bring the money. You don't need to go to any civil society organization. You can go to the prisons yourself, ask for these cases. You will see there are lots and lots and lots of them. And I'm also advocating to many other human rights where I say organization, civil society. There are some civil societies that collect large amount of money to do things like this. And you see that at the end of the day, the kind of things that they end up using the money for, I feel like they don't put the money where their mouth is. So I want to use this opportunity too to also advocate to their consciences. There are people that are really suffering human rights abuse at different levels, especially in our prisons. So we need to actually go there and help them out. Bring them out. They deserve better than the life they get. Because the prisons is not a place that you wish anybody to go to,
Are,
especially our Nigerian prisons.
are there any such organizations, maybe one that you are part of or you are heading, that takes up these pro bono cases? Do you care to let us in on that?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay.
I work with Global Integrity Crusade Network, GICN, and we are a group of lawyers. We actually have a law firm, and our law firm, we have a law firm, we have that particular NGO. And so all the members of the law firm are part of the organization. So what we do basically is that we take up these pro bono cases. We even help we partner with other NGOs. Whenever they have these cases, they come to us, and we actually go to court and help them to do the cases whatever it is, the trials, everything. We just help them through the stages. We give them legal advice. Whenever it comes to that, that's what we are in for. We help indigent persons generally. We also do public interest litigations. Whenever we see that there is will I say there is a big shot that is taking what he ought not to take, or actually abusing his office, we actually take up such cases too. So we get these reports, we investigate them, and once we do our checks and we do our balances, and we see that we are found wanting, we actually write petitions to the appropriate authorities, and we follow up.
Are there means of funding or perhaps donations that could be done to the organization? How do you source for funding to take up these cases? We will want to know in just a few minutes before we wrap up.
Okay, to be very honest, most of the cases we actually use office funds for now. We've had very few. We've had very low funding coming into the system, but because we are all lawyers, we don't look at the funds per se. We just try to do our bits and use part of our. We actually designate a percentage of our law firm's earnings the into the NGO. So that's how we are funding for now. But we are actually open to funds from individuals, from organizations, and so on.
All right, Honorable Barrister Mary Ogwiji, I must thank you so much. It's been a very wonderful deliberation on the program this morning. And thank you for the work that you do with your organization. Please remind me the name again.
Global Integrity Crusade Network, GICN.
All right, thank you so much. And we are hoping that these pro bono cases are taken up and the majority of vulnerable Nigerians languishing in Nigerian prisons are helped even more.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, that has been Honorable Barrister Mary Ogwiji, who is a human rights lawyer and politician. speaking to us on human rights violations in the country.